In the quiet country town of Leongatha, a family gathering turned into a national tragedy. It was July of 2023 when Erin Patterson, a woman now known across Australia, invited her estranged husband's family over for lunch. She prepared a meal of beef Wellington, a classic dish that would become the centerpiece of a shocking crime. Her guests were Don and Gail Patterson, her former parents-in-law, and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, along with her husband Ian. They sat down to eat, unaware that the meal was laced with a deadly poison death-cap mushrooms. These fungi are among the most toxic in the world, and ingesting even a small amount can lead to a slow, agonizing death. Soon after the meal, the guests fell violently ill. They suffered from severe gastrointestinal symptoms, a hallmark of amatoxin poisoning. The four were rushed to the hospital as their conditions rapidly deteriorated. Within days, the poison took its devastating toll. Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson died first, their bodies unable to fight the damage to their organs. A few days later, Don Patterson also passed away, succumbing to the same terrible fate. Only one person who ate the beef Wellington survived. Ian Wilkinson, a respected local pastor, clung to life, enduring immense suffering before he received a life-saving liver transplant, a testament to the severity of the poison he had consumed. Erin Patterson's estranged husband, Simon Patterson, was also invited to the lunch but had to cancel at the last minute. This simple twist of fate likely saved his life. Erin herself, along with her 2 children, did not get sick. She later told police that she and her children ate a different version of the meal, one that did not contain the deadly mushrooms. This detail immediately raised suspicion. Why would a host prepare a separate dish for herself and her children while serving a potentially contaminated meal to her guests? It was a question that investigators would relentlessly pursue as they began to unravel the dark events of that fateful winter afternoon in Victoria. The news sent shockwaves through the small community and beyond, capturing the nation's attention. A seemingly ordinary family lunch had resulted in 3 deaths and 1 man fighting for his life. The case was complex and deeply unsettling, centered on a woman who appeared to be a caring mother and neighbor. How could such a thing happen? Was it a tragic accident, a case of mistaken identity with wild mushrooms? Or was it something far more sinister? A calculated act of murder disguised as a hospitable gesture? The police investigation intensified, and all eyes turned to Erin Patterson, the cook who had served the final, fatal meal to her family. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of Erin Patterson, arguing that the poisoning was no accident but a meticulously planned crime. They presented evidence suggesting she had deliberately acquired and prepared the death-cap mushrooms to murder her relatives. Prosecutors, led by Jane Warren, pointed to Patterson's internet search history in the months leading up to the lunch. They found that she had looked up information on mushroom foraging and had even taken photographs of dehydrated mushrooms that were consistent in appearance with the deadly fungi. This, they argued, showed forethought and a clear intent to learn about the poison she would later use on her unsuspecting family members. Furthermore, the prosecution built a case around the idea of premeditation, or planning in advance. A key piece of evidence was a food dehydrator that Patterson had purchased. Investigators later found traces of toxic fungi inside it, linking her directly to the preparation of the mushrooms. After her guests fell ill, Patterson disposed of the dehydrator at a local dump, an act the prosecution described as a desperate attempt to conceal evidence and obstruct the police investigation. Her initial statements to authorities were also called into question, as she provided conflicting accounts of where she had obtained the mushrooms, further deepening the suspicion that she was hiding something crucial from the authorities. The motive, according to the prosecution, was tied to her crumbling relationship with her estranged husband, Simon. They alleged that she had lured her former in-laws to the lunch with a false claim that she had been diagnosed with cancer, playing on their sympathy to ensure they would attend. The prosecution argued that her failure to immediately inform medical staff that the victims had consumed death-cap mushrooms was a critical omission. This delay, they claimed, prevented doctors from administering the correct treatment sooner, effectively sealing the fate of the 3 victims who died. They contended that her actions were not just reckless, but were part of a calculated and cruel plan. In court, the prosecution labelled the crime as worst category offending, a term for the most serious types of murder. They argued that Patterson's use of poison was a particularly heinous method, as it inflicted a prolonged and painful death upon her victims. They described her actions as a profound betrayal of trust, turning a symbol of family unity, a shared meal, into an instrument of death. Based on the weight of the evidence they presented, from the online searches to the discarded dehydrator and the alleged lies, the prosecution sought the maximum possible penalty, a life sentence without the possibility of parole, ensuring she would never be released from prison. The emotional toll of the murders was laid bare in court through a series of heartbreaking victim impact statements. A total of 28 statements were presented, each one describing the immense pain and devastation that Erin Patterson's actions had caused. Family members spoke of the loss as a tsunami that had swept through their lives, affecting 4 generations and leaving a void that could never be filled. They described Don, Gail, and Heather as beloved parents, grandparents, and pillars of their community, people whose kindness and love had touched countless lives. Their sudden and violent deaths left a legacy of sorrow and disbelief that continues to haunt their loved ones. Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor of the poisoning, delivered a powerfully moving statement from the courtroom. He spoke of the physical and emotional scars he now carries, explaining that without his wife, Heather, he feels only half alive. Despite the immense suffering he endured, he expressed a sense of forgiveness toward Patterson, but firmly demanded justice. He said he hoped she would use her time in prison to reflect on her actions and perhaps one day become a better person. His words captured a profound sense of grace in the face of unimaginable loss, yet they underscored the deep need for accountability for the crime that had torn his family apart. Simon Patterson, Erin's estranged husband and the son of Don and Gail, also shared his profound grief. He spoke about the complex and tragic reality his children now face, knowing that their mother is responsible for the deaths of their grandparents. Almost everybody knows their mother murdered their grandparents, he stated, highlighting the inescapable public nature of the tragedy. He described how his children have been robbed not only of their loving grandparents, but also of any chance at a normal relationship with their mother. His statement revealed a family fractured by betrayal, with innocent children caught in the middle of an unthinkable crime. Throughout the hearing, the courtroom was filled with an atmosphere of profound sadness. The families of the victims sat together, offering quiet support to one another as they listened to the harrowing details of their loved ones' final days. Their collective statements painted a picture not of vengeance, but of a deep and abiding need for the legal system to acknowledge the gravity of their loss. They sought a sentence that would reflect the cruelty of the crime and ensure that the person responsible could never harm another family again. Their grief was a quiet but powerful presence, a constant reminder of the human cost of the Leongatha mushroom tragedy. While the legal proceedings continue, Erin Patterson is being held in the Gordon unit at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, Victoria's only maximum security prison for women. Her life there is one of extreme isolation. Due to a high profile and the nature of her crime, she reportedly spends up to 22 hours a day confined to her cell, separated from the general prison population for her own safety. Justice Christopher Beale, the judge overseeing her case, expressed concern over these conditions, noting they do not sound humane and acknowledging that her notoriety means she will likely remain in isolation for a very long time, a harsh reality of her new life. Life inside prison has not been without incident. Reports have emerged of Patterson's behavior, with one former inmate describing her as entitled, arrogant, demanding and rude. More alarmingly, she was allegedly involved in an incident where another inmate fell ill after consuming mayonnaise suspected to have been contaminated. While the Department of Justice denied any confirmed poisoning, the event prompted an investigation and her temporary relocation within the prison, fueling public speculation. Despite her isolation, she has access to a computer, a hair straightener, and a fan in her cell, and has reportedly taken up crocheting to pass the long hours. Throughout the trial and her subsequent conviction, Erin Patterson has maintained her innocence, insisting that the poisoning was a terrible accident. Her defense team, led by Colin Mandy SC, argued that there was no malicious intent behind the fatal lunch. They have already stated their intention to appeal the guilty verdict. During the plea hearing, her lawyers argued for a more lenient sentence, requesting a 30-year non-parole period, which would make her eligible for release when she is 80 years old. They also cited her diagnoses of autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and anxiety as mitigating factors that should be considered in her sentencing. The final chapter of this tragic case is now approaching. Justice Christopher Beale is scheduled to deliver Erin Patterson's sentence on September 8, 2025. This will determine how long she will remain in prison before she can be considered for parole. Once the sentence is handed down, she will have 28 days to formally lodge her appeal, setting the stage for the next phase of legal battles. For the grieving families, the sentencing will mark a significant milestone in their long and painful journey for justice, though the sorrow from that fateful lunch in Leongatha will undoubtedly remain with them forever.